Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Bill Faulkner, your host, and I'm not sure when this is going to air, but I'd like to consider it a very special holiday edition of the Mastering Rod Building podcast because my guest today would never say this, but is I consider a saint among rod builders and someone who's done so much for so many others for so many years, and that's Dan O'Kane of Uncle D's Custom Rods. A lot of you are going to know immediately who Dan is, but he's the founder of Uncle D's Custom Rods. But maybe more importantly, and more to his passion, he's the founder of Josie's Gift, which is a 501(c)(3) not-for-profit that builds rods for kids that are terminally ill and suffering serious health challenges. Um, he's also a member of the Custom Rod Builders Guild and a very, very good builder. So please welcome today Dan O'Kane. Dan, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for that introduction, Bill. I
Yeah,
appreciate
no,
that.
well, you're so humble and such a doer of great things, and without ever looking for any thanks or recognition. So I realize this probably makes you a little bit uncomfortable, but I love the cause, and I love that guys like you and others are out there doing this kind of stuff, and so I'd like to call some attention to it. And we're going to spend some time talking about what you've learned over the years when it comes to building rods for kids, right? Because in many ways rods for kids kind of flies in the face of a lot of things that custom rod building is about. But I think once you get a chance here to talk about your story, it'll make sense to everybody why rod builders would be doing this, and we'll hopefully warm people's hearts and move them to participate either through their time or their talents or the resources. But we were talking before we started recording, and you have a great story. You've been building rods since 2012, and I always ask my guests, "How did you get into rod building?" You have a really great story about how you got into rod building because you and your wife, who've been married going on 30 years or something, your anniversary's in May. Tell us the story. You guys were buying each other rods always for anniversary gifts, and then trying to one up and get something special. Like, jump in and tell me the story.
Yeah, way back when we first got married, we were young and you know how it is.
I
Didn't have a
do.
whole lot of money, so we bought each
Yeah, I was
other.
young and broke. So
No,
let me be plain. Yeah.
thanks. Bought us ourselves each, or for one another, a nice fishing rod because we did a lot of fishing at that time. We'd just go from shore to shore. We didn't have a boat or nothing. We were young and
Yeah.
whatnot. Then as we got older and a little more money in the pocket, we started doing a guided fishing trip for our anniversary in May. Well,
Are
as
you
we've got
listening, Heidi? Is my wife listening? Mom, are you listening? This is a great idea to get a husband for an anniversary guided fishing trip. Hint, hint. I'm just saying.
And
Please
we'd
continue,
we'd
Dan.
go out together, and as we've gotten older, May seems to be a lot colder than it used to be when we were younger. So
Well,
those
in
days,
Wisconsin, especially. Yeah.
yes, so those days end up. We usually go out in the summertime now, but those rods that we bought for each other are well worn out and whatnot. And I can't remember. It had to be around 2010-ish or so, 11. Went to a fishing show here in Madison, Wisconsin, and I was like, I saw some custom rods and I'd never really seen them before. And I'm like, I'd love to get her a set of custom rods that we could enjoy together
Sure.
and do that. And I got looking at the pricing. I'm wow, that's really nice and that's expensive for where I was at in life.
Yeah, yeah.
And I reached out to a guy up in Mauston, Wisconsin, and I told him what I wanted to do and everything, and he gave me a really nice price point on a set of rods. And I got them, and she was amazed with it. And I ended up buying another one, had a couple other friends, and then I sat there and I was like, heck, I can do this. So I jumped on the typical website and ordered a kit. I had about $400 tied up and stuff. I laid it all out, and I'm like, what the heck am I doing now?
I
So
remember
I,
those days. I remember that first kit.
I went online and I was searching around rod builders in my area, and I
Hmm.
came across a site that I called and left a message for a gentleman called named Ron Walters,
Okay.
and he called me back a week later and he said, "How did you find this? It's been 10 years since I taught a class
Oh,
or
wow.
taught anybody." And he was an old retired school teacher.
Okay.
And he says, "You bring down what you got." He was about 40 miles away from me. I go
Okay.
down there and he was like just all into it and he was all excited. And we got together and he sat down and he laid everything out and he explained everything to me. We built the handle together and then he took and he built this whole rod for me as I watched him. And then he said, "Now, can you do that?" I said, "I think I picked up enough that I can do it. It'll never be anything like you're doing here, but I think I could do it." And he says, "Good." And he tore it all apart on me. I was thinking, "Oh, I'm going to have this awesome rod." And
Yeah.
he tore it
He
all
really
apart.
is a teacher, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, and we built it all back together, and I still fish with that rod.
Yeah.
When I left Ron's house that day, and well, no, it was the next week I came down to do some other stuff and learn some advanced stuff. His wife
Okay.
caught me outside the house, and she's like, "I want to thank you so much because you brought a passion back to Ron that
Oh,
he hasn't had in quite a while." And I'm like, "I want to thank you for allowing me to come here." And it just the timing was just perfect for both of us.
right.
So
That's
that's
awesome.
that's how it all started out.
Well, that's amazing. It's such a great story. And I hope maybe in the off chance we have any enlightened and thoughtful wives or girlfriends listening, that they'll understand how meaningful a custom rod can be. It can change the course of your life, right?
It does, definitely.
Oh, that's awesome. So, we're gonna get into the specifics of talking about what you've learned about kids rods, right? And taking kids fishing and introducing kids to this. But I gotta have you tell us the story, because I think this dates back to about when you and I first met each other. I'm thinking it was around 2016, around the original Josie Perea, right? And so
Correct.
so walk us through this. You were working at a children's hospital in Wisconsin, or pick it up from there.
Yeah, I was working at the UW hospital here in Madison, and I'd been out. I've had four knee replacements, and I'd just
Oh
come back
goodness.
from my last one, and they put me in a dish room thinking that I was going to quit and not stick it out. Well, I was in the Marine Corps, so I just don't know how to quit things. And I was like, just gave
Semper
me more
Fi, baby.
motivation to show them that, yes, I'm going to do this. Well,
Right.
after about 6 months of that, they decided I wasn't going anywhere. And they decided they were going to move me up to the children's hospital running a coffee and sandwich and breakfast shop. And I was like, I'm ashamed to admit it, but I tell it because it's part of the story. Was my first thought was when they told me that, who the heck wants to be around sick kids all day? And
Right.
that was my first thought. And I got up there and I got working, and it took me about a day to realize what an amazing place that was, how amazing them children are, and especially that staff that is up there. They're second to none. They teach them, treat them kids as their own, and
Yep.
it just grew from there. And I met Josie one day. She came in, and her mother was just she was just scared, and she came up to order some coffee and a sandwich and whatnot. And I asked if I could ask what was going on and whatnot, and she said, "Yes, my daughter's going through chemo treatment, and she hasn't eaten in about a week and a half." And I'm like, "You know what? Have her step up here. I'll talk with her." And I took her through everything that we had, all the breads, all the sauces, all the cheese, all the meats, and she ended up having a roast beef and cheese sandwich, nothing else on it, just a half a sandwich. And she was sitting just down the hall a little way with her aunt, and she went back and there sat down there. And I said to her mom, Jessica, I said, "Do you think we had these little mini muffins we had baked in house?" I said, "Do you think she'll eat one of these if I threw one of these in?" And she's like, she was scared. She's like, "I don't know if she'll eat anything." So I snuck it in there without her knowing it. About 15 minutes later, she comes back and she says, "Thanks for the muffin, mister." And she'd eaten everything, the sandwich, the muffin, and everything. From that point on, she told me she was going to call me the Muffin Man. And I picked up that name as the Muffin Man. And she was a very, very old soul. She was only 9 at the time when I
Yeah,
first met her.
we should tell people this is a 9-year-old with a neuroblastoma, right? This is a
Correct.
bleak diagnosis. what many would call a death sentence. This is something she and her family are actively going through. And this little girl only had eyes for all the other kids and tried to help. You talk about someone with a natural born servant's heart. She was remarkable. She was, if I remember correctly from you telling me and the original story, like anytime there was a kid crying, unfortunately, Josie spent a long time in that hospital. And like many children with neuroblastomas, despite the miracles that happen there every day, she did not make it out. And her diagnosis did get her in the end, which is, I can't, as a parent, I cannot imagine. I don't know how I could survive that, right? But you got to see this
Exactly.
girl going through this trauma and bleak diagnosis that would devastate most of us, being nothing short of an angel on earth, and sort of become like the homeroom mom of the whole ward, right?
That's exactly what she was. She'd come back from treatments. She'd be holding her throw up bucket, and she'd see a little kid over in the corner with tears in their eyes, crying. She would take it upon herself to go talk to that child, and no adults ever interacted when they did that. None of us ever knew what exactly she said. But by the time she come back, both of them kids would be laughing and smiling and giggling. If some of the kids had to go through a certain procedure that they were scared of or whatever, the first questions that was always asked to the nurse was, "Has Josie been through this?" And she would literally
Amazing.
go into the rooms and talk to the kids and tell them what it's about, how it's going. And she never missed an opportunity to play Nurse Josie. And she was always worried about everybody else. And every time the kids would come back from their procedure, they'd always have to go by Josie's room and give them a thumbs up or a wave or a smile, or if they could get in there and give her a hug. That's just, it was unbelievable to see her do that.
It's
So,
remarkable. I mean, I don't know many adults that could maintain that cheer
no.
and optimism and selflessness through that. It's real easy to feel sorry for yourself when you don't feel well or when you face a bleak diagnosis. And what a remarkable young woman we could all learn so much from.
Yeah, and
So this turned into you building a rod, you just personally taking it upon yourself to build a rod for Josie. And so walk us through that, and then how that sort of, in a way, at her request, turned into what is now this unbelievable not-for-profit organization that you run with other very dedicated volunteers, including Josie's mom, called
correct.
josiesgift.org. Walk us
Yes.
through that story because it's a remarkable story, Dan.
So after I got to know Josie more and whatnot, she was always there to help somebody else out. And she'd always stop and say hi to me and give me a hug and whatnot. One
Muffin
day she
Man.
one day she came in and she was just, oh, she was mad. She wasn't talking to nobody or nothing. And I'm like, what is going on? This is not Josie. And her mom told me that the community was doing a fundraiser and it was a kids fishing event. Well, she could not attend it because she was in for a stem cell transplant surgery and she had to be in from Thursday to Monday before they could do that. So she was missing this and she was mad. And I called her over and I'm like, you know what, Josie? I'm going to try to make this right for you. I said, I want to build you a custom fishing rod. And her mom looks at me and her Josie looks at her mom and she's like, what? What is a custom fishing rod? So I explained everything, and we sat there for 2 hours designing this rod. And it was pink, it was purple, it had sparkles, it had glitter, everything she was in. And I tore that rod apart 3 different times. I probably had over 80 hours tied up in
Oh
that rod
goodness.
because I wanted it to be just perfect.
Oh yeah.
So I got the rod done, and it ended up being presented to her on her last day of chemo treatment, which is kind of a celebration in the hospital for the
Ring the
kid.
bell, baby. Yeah.
You got it. And it all come apart, and she was just unbelievable. Couldn't believe what she had gotten. So from there, she took her rod and she took it home. And her father couldn't be there that day because he's an amazing man in himself, but he does a lot of things. He's a volunteer fireman, EMS, runs a regular job. Plus, they had 6 other kids at home.
Oh
So
goodness.
she said that my dad wants a rod that matches mine. And I got thinking about what am I going to do with this? And I was like, I don't know. And I got thinking, I was like, I couldn't imagine what it'd be like as a parent to have to put all your attention on one of your seven children.
Yep.
And thankfully, they had a family structure that helped out with everything. And I never, ever once heard any of them other children complain that Josie was getting this or that or
Right.
getting more attention and whatnot. Just an amazing family. So
Yep.
I'm like, I want to build a rod for the siblings. And I'm like, well, I just started my business and I was like, well, I can't really afford to do eight other rods. And I was like,
Right.
so I got on the guild's Facebook page and I put out a message about what I wanted to do and why I wanted to do it and a little background on Josie. And I was really overwhelmed that within 20 minutes, I had like 30 people contact me and say they wanted to donate a rod. And I was just overwhelmed because I was like, how do I tell these people, no, I don't need no more. I'm good, blah, blah, blah. And it just worked out. It was amazing. And we took the rods up to Josie's house. We were supposed to go on Christmas Eve one year, and she ended up being admitted into the hospital. So we ended up going on New Year's Eve. And I said, Josie, how are we going to present these rods to your siblings? I said, this is Josie's gift to her brothers and sisters. And she's like, well, we're going to make them draw numbers and wait each turn. And that's exactly what she did. She made each of them get in the family room and
Uh,
draw numbers
yeah.
and handed them all out. Unfortunately, everybody loved the rod. I'd go up every afternoon with Josie and her mom into the hospital, and we designed each one of their rods, kind of getting ideas what they wanted and everything.
What they
And
were
then,
into, what they liked, colors,
yep,
all that. Yeah.
exactly. And being from Wisconsin, I'm a huge Packer fans, and for some reason, one of her brothers is a Bears fan, and we actually
Oh.
had to do a Chicago Bears one, and it was tough, but we
Are
did
your
it.
fingers still burning?
Uh, but from there, um, it's just grown. And unfortunately, in 2017, Josie passed away from her um, cancer. And I was actually down in Iowa at, oh gosh, I can't even think of the guy's name. I can see him. Um, Doc, he was a,
Doc
you're,
Ski.
no, not Doc Ski.
Oh,
Um, I can't think of his name. Anyways, we was at an event down there, and I got a call from Josie's mother on Sunday morning that she had actually passed, and it was just it was devastating. And a lot of these people that were at this gathering was um, had helped out with doing some of the rods and whatnot, and I was like, I need to tell everybody. And I was with Tom Sullivan, Al Hutchinson.
mm-hmm.
I was down there with them, and we went through everything. I think Bill was even at that event, and
Probably. Yeah.
I got up to start telling everybody that unfortunately Josie passed away, and I couldn't do it. And Tom and Al both stepped up and took over and started explaining everything, and it was just the what I got from the guild members wanting to help out and then everybody reaching out after that was just, it's an amazing organization. That's all I
Yep.
can say. It's
No,
just,
no, it is. And so it's a heavy topic, right? And it's not a happy ending. But the legacy, thanks to Josie, and her desire to help others and was wishing that you could do it for more kids, right? Turned into this wonderful 501(c)(3) that is now called, and you understand now why, Josie's Gift, right?
Josie's
So
gift.
it's an absolutely remarkable organization. If you want to learn more about it, you can go to josiesgift.org. It's JOSIES gift, GIFT.org, and learn all about it. If you are the parent or relative of a child in need, you can make a rod request. If you are a rod builder or just someone who wants to help kids and their families that are going through it. There's links there to donate. There's kids fishing days they help organize. There's all kinds of ways you can get involved and help. And I mean, part of what I love about the story, Dan, is just this was it's so kind of pure and natural and non-commercial. It was just literally trying to help somebody out, cheer somebody up who's going through a tough time, who's a kid, which somehow seems to make it even less fair and so much worse, right? And the
Agreed.
people who work at these children's hospitals are saints. My wife spent 6 years in the pediatric intensive care unit as a nurse practitioner at the Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, and it got those are magical places and miracles happen every day, but it is really, really tough for some of us. And it was really, really tough for her coworkers on the unit. And usually if you made it 6 months, you had the calling and you were a lifer. But a lot of people washed out because it's heavy, right?
It
And
is.
it can be sad and it can be hard to see mercy and grace and faith in the way these things work out. But as devastated as you were when Josie passed, as everybody who knew her was, it's so amazing that this legacy lives on and this has turned into the organization that it is. And I gotta believe she's sitting up there smiling, and is going to give the Muffin
There,
Man a high five when she sees you again
there's no doubt
someday,
about
right?
that I've never been one that things fall into place, but everything I'm doing with Josie's gift, it just falls right into place. We had one of the examples is we had a child back out of one of our fishing days one day, and I was like, it was 2 days before the event, and I had another child that was coming into the hospital that I've known for about 6 months, and I walked up to his mother and I said, by chance, are you guys doing anything Saturday morning? And she said, well, we got a wedding in the afternoon, but we ain't got nothing going in the morning. And I said, well, this is what we got going on. And lo and behold, our event's held in Oshkosh on Lake Winnebago. They're from Fond du Lac, which is 10 miles away. And
Right.
it just all fell into place. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
everything just, it happens. We had an event this fall and our caterer backed out, had something happen 5:30 the night before. And I was
Okay.
like, everybody's freaking out. And it's like,
That's
we're
nearly
sitting in
unrecoverable.
a bar restaurant having dinner, and I'm like, it's not a big deal. We'll figure it out. And I'm
Right.
looking at the menu to see what they do pizzas. We had 50 pizzas ordered and brought in. It all falls into place.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so how we got the name Josie's Gift was before she passed, I was going up playing Uno with her every day until the day
Yeah.
I accidentally beat her. I never got to play again.
Oh, watch
So
out now.
I said, or she said to me, she said, it would be neat if you could help other kids like you helped me. And I said, well, let me go home and talk to my wife, Laura, and we'll discuss it and we'll get back to you. And we discussed it, and I came back to her the next day and I said, Laura and I discussed it, and we can do that under one condition. And she says, well, what's that? And I said, as long as we can call it Josie's Gift. And she put her hand on her hip and she's like, I think we can do that. And I'm getting tingles right now. Every time I tell that
Yeah.
story, it
Yeah.
it gets me. And that's exactly how it all started. Um,
No. Well, how many
unfortunately,
rods have you guys built? Do you even
um,
know? Do you even have a
I
count?
I made the mistake in the beginning that I didn't start numbering them.
Yeah.
Just this year, I started numbering them. And my
Okay.
goal was to do like 8 a year. And this year, I just did number 16 for the year.
Okay.
I
Amazing.
know we're right at 100, over 100 rods in that area that we've done for kids and given them to them. And with
Right.
that, we sit down and I sit down with the children and get to meet them and their families. And my goal with that is we design their rod, but if I can
This is,
take
I
that
think, a
child,
really cool part of the process. They get to sit down with you, and it's the whole process of designing the rod, picking the colors. This is not something where often as custom rod builders, we have the spouse or the kid or the fishing buddy or the dad, and they get to us, and it's supposed to be top secret. They don't want the person receiving the gift to know anything, and so we're sleuthing around and trying to talk to fishing buddies and keep it all confidential. This is totally opposite. You actually get to sit down with these kids, and that's an important part of the interaction, right? To
it,
design the rod from the ground up.
it is because I get to know a lot about them. They get to know about me. We
Right.
design exactly what they want. Um, and it's the whole purpose of that in my eyes is if I can sit down with them for 2 hours, take their mind off what they deal with on a daily
Off their,
basis,
oh,
that
yeah,
is a win. It's a win right off the top.
for everybody. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
absolutely. And what a creative way. I never would have thought of that. I would have just started building rods and handing them out. It's so genius, but you spending all those hours on the unit, seeing what those kids are going through. I mean, you understand how important a couple of hours apiece can be to them and
Exactly.
to their family, who it's a difficult situation. And I think of it as a ministry, and I think it's a remarkable ministry that you've spearheaded. And I know there's a lot of people who help you, and we're going to talk about some of them. And I know you have wonderful corporate sponsors like Bill Batson, and we're going to talk about them. But I want to thank you personally because I think it's such a neat thing, and it inspires me personally to try to find ways to do more and help people out more. And I can only imagine it would do the same for other rod builders, especially when you've been doing it for a while. Most of us wind up with some blanks we never built, with some parts we're not going to use. Maybe they're not even current, right? Maybe they're old model, or, that stuff can all be turned into something, right? Colors of
Exactly.
thread we don't want to use. You never know what color a kid's going to want, right? Like all of this stuff is useful. So as I mentioned, you guys are a fully formed 501(c)(3). All donations are tax deductible. But let's talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, the ways people can give. Obviously, they can go directly to the website, and probably the simplest thing is they can just make a gift, a monetary donation. And they can even opt to cover the credit card fees. So 100% of the donation goes straight to Josie's Gift and goes into rods for kids, right?
Right.
But how do you all deal with if someone's listening and they're a potential corporate sponsor, or people have excess parts, blanks, something that they want to give? You also accept in-kind donations like that?
Definitely.
Okay.
Anything from cork handles, EVA handles, old blanks, guides, everything. We can all piece it all together and make something out of it. So that's an enormous help for getting stuff like that.
What
So
else do you guys need? How else can people help?
I'm trying to find somehow to get in with one of the reel companies because right now that's one of my biggest
Mm,
expenses is because
yeah.
I put a reel with every rod and I don't want to put a $10 reel on a rod.
Right. Right.
It's
Yeah.
like a 250, $300 rod I'm
Right.
building for these kids. I put
Right.
everything into it.
Right.
And if we could find somebody that could help us get us a connection in with somebody to get them donated or even a discount on them, that would be amazing. That'd be a big help for us.
Awesome. I have some ideas. I'll for sake of sponsors and not putting anyone on the spot and creating an expectation that may or may not be fulfilled. But let's talk about that because I have some ideas.
Sounds
That's
great.
great. I didn't know that was something you need. I'm glad you said that. What about rod builders that would donate their time and labor to help assemble some of these things? I mean, you guys
Yeah,
have kind of spread out. You're not just local anymore, right?
no, we're not local. We've done rods here in the Madison area, all through the state, Illinois, Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, all through the Midwest. And my goal is that eventually, now that we have our website up and running, and a kid from anywhere can request a rod.
Yeah.
And all I request is that they've gone through or are going through a life-altering medical event. And I request that they send me a picture showing that they are of them enjoying the outdoors because I don't want to build a rod and it just go to dad or whatever.
Right.
So we do that. But one of my goals is eventually get big enough that I get rod builders throughout the US that if I get a kid in Utah that reaches out to me for a rod, have somebody in that area contact them with that child and have them contact or work with them and design a rod and build a rod for them. So that's
Yeah.
one of my goals.
And don't think for a second that there's not a need for this out there, right? Like other people do this as well. I know Todd Dabrowski runs an organization called Rods for Kids, and he builds and gives away a bunch of rods. Bill Manzel has done that. Like there's all kinds of people doing this kind of work. There is a need. And I would just ask in this holiday time, especially, that people maybe take a quiet moment and think about the gift that they have and the skill that they have and the ability to craft custom rods or their ability to support through a donation, all of which helps immensely. Their ability to donate parts in kind, thread, finish, handles, grips, blanks, guides, sets, tip tops, anything thread can help. And my sincere hope is that this will motivate some people to like you said, when you do the right thing and you take care of others, everything sort of has a way of falling in place sometimes, right? And sometimes you go into this just trying to help somebody else, and you might find that it ends up being a very rich blessing for you too, right? And
That's an
it helps
unbel
you and heals you in a lot of ways. Yeah.
that is the truest statement I've heard. Because I get so much out
Yeah.
of seeing them kids smile, seeing those parents tear up because their kids
Yeah.
out on a fishing day and they're
Right.
having a good day. They may have not had a good day in a couple of
Yeah.
months. And
Yeah.
that's the feeling I get. I don't do it to get kudos or this or that.
Right.
When I do get them, it's amazing, but it's seeing them kids and them families getting the enjoyment out of it that is I tell everybody I get paid in hugs and smiles.
Yeah,
And
well, look,
that's what it's
from a sp
about.
yeah, it is, and God bless you because it's a ministry, and I respect and appreciate so much what you do, and I hope others might, I'll tell you a funny story. Um, I have two children, one of whom is 20 and in college now, my son Liam, and I have a daughter, Molly James, who's 12, and the church that we're members of, St. Francis Xavier Catholic Church in Birmingham, we when Molly James was of age, that she was sort of Sunday school age and what we in the Catholic Church called Children's Liturgy of the Word. I was like, well, if our child's going to go to this, like, I feel like we need to volunteer to help teach it. They just sort of rotated teachers through it, right? And you had to go through a background check and you had to go through some safety training. And then you basically go on a rotation where once a month ish, you're teaching Sunday school to these kids, and it's kind of during the middle of the service, during the homily, when maybe they're not from an age of 4 to 8, maybe they're not able to understand what the deacon or the preacher is or the priest is teaching, but you try to break it down for them a little bit. And there's a little bit of arts and crafts and music, but you're trying to get this message across. And it was so amazing to me that after having heard these scripture readings and Bible verses my whole life, when you really sit down and try to boil it down to the essence and simplify it for these kids and get it across to a 4-year-old, it actually made me really learn a lot in sort of the I don't know, pressure is not the right word, but it's not exactly the wrong word either. The responsibility and obligation I felt to make sure that I got something across and that they took a
Yep.
lesson out of it. It was unbelievable how much it impacted me, right? And so which I guess speaks volumes about how much help I need. But it ended up I got way more out of it than I put into it, right? And I think that's funny how these things can be. And it certainly seems like everybody who's chosen to participate with you has felt the same way. And it's just amazing. So, um, and I want to personally thank, on behalf of our industry, let's talk a little bit about some of the other builders, if you don't mind. And I know you can't remember everybody and you won't get everybody, but you have had some right-hand people that you can rely on. I'd love to shout them out, and I'd love to talk about your sponsors a little bit, if you don't mind. I know you're like the last one to put this stuff out there, but I'm deliberately seeking you out to encourage you and give you some recognition and a pat on the back and maybe encourage other sponsors. So please
Th-
don't hold back.
Thank you. One of my good buddies, met him through rod building, Jordan Duran. He's a Wisconsin guy here, phenomenal rod builder. He will probably be upset that I even mentioned his name because he wants to be in the background.
Sorry,
Um,
Jordan, we're outing you, buddy. You're a good person. Thank you.
he's an amazing helper. Tom Sullivan, he's one running the event up at Park Falls every
Oh
year.
yeah, great
He's been a
event.
huge help.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Al Hutchinson's been helping out.
And how many
Um,
people has Al taught, right? Like Al's teaching kids all the
exactly.
time. I feel like every time I'm talking to him, he's got a class going with these kids at the high school or the junior high. It's
Yep.
awesome.
Yep. I've helped Al with a bunch of his classes. Well, all of us here in Wisconsin area, we get together and help out with each other's classes.
Right.
We're actually doing in March, I'm organizing a veterans class that we're gonna do here, and
Oh,
all them
that's
guys are
awesome.
gonna be helping out. So
When is that?
it's gonna be March 15th in Jefferson, Wisconsin. We're
Okay.
opening it up to 12 to 15 veterans in the area, and we're gonna be setting them up with a nice rod and teaching them how to build it and everything.
That is awesome.
So from there, corporate sponsors, Bill Batson, everybody knows Bill. I
Yep,
I
everybody does.
can't
Way to go,
thank
Bill.
I can't thank Bill enough. He's given me his personal number. He tells me if you need a certain thing, this, that, or the other thing, you contact me.
Yep.
Just an amazing family altogether.
Yeah, I was just saying, I've said this before, but I think of them as the first family of rod building, right? And
I agree. I
every
agree.
organization I talk to, whether it's Healing Waters or whether it's, all these things, it's always he's one of the first people at the top of the list. So they do so much and look for so little recognition. It's I really appreciate that about him, and I think all of us in the industry benefit from that, whether we realize it or not. So thank you,
I
Bill and
agree.
Batson Enterprises and the Batson family.
Don Schaefer down in Florida, he
Oh
does the
yeah,
custom painting. I'll call him up and say, hey, I need such and such. Send me a bill. I'll take care of it. And
Backbone Rod.
he's committed to two custom paint jobs every year for Josie's
Nice.
gift, which is pretty amazing. Um, Kevin down to Get Bit, he's
Yeah,
been very
Kevin
helpful.
Bratz. Well, good.
And Reggie Kobus from All
Callus.
Around Fishing.
Yeah, yeah.
He's sent me some blanks and a bunch of other stuff. He's been a huge help. So
That's
um,
awesome.
those guys that I can think of off the top of my head, but there's other people that help out. So
Well, there always are, right? Including the board of the organization, including Josie's mom, Jessica Perea. Like it's just we're gonna post some links and some information so you can know how to get in touch with Josie's Gift or with Dan, and hopefully some of you will be moved to help. And I promise you won't regret it. You'll get at least as much out of it as you put into it. But one of the other things I think, so just awesome, awesome work, Dan, and so much to you inspire me, and I appreciate it. And I hope I think you know exactly, you get to see their faces, you know these kids on a personal basis, but it's just awesome what you do, and I really, really appreciate it. And I know, like you were mentioning, Jared, like you're the last one who wants credit and the light shown on you, and it's not about you, and you want it about the kids, and and I appreciate that, but I also think maybe a little bit of letting people know what you're up to, and you and Bill Batson and Todd and others can maybe get someone to help get involved and make a contribution, and everybody does their part in some small way that all makes it happen, so that's great. But
yeah, I got
another
one more. I got
oh,
one more I got
please,
to
yeah,
throw out there.
please.
Jeff and Terry Summers from he just started up a company, custom rod builder jigs.com.
Okay.
He donates 50% of all of his sales back to Josie's Gift.
Oh,
On
wow.
He's got the guide alignment tools. He's got a new a weaving set that you instead of using popsicle sticks, he's got a whole kit of different sizes that fits the blanks just perfect. Amazing guys. Him and his wife. One thing that Jessica, Josie's mother, requested that we do once we got established is go back into the Ronald McDonald House and cook meals for the families. Jeff
Mm-hmm.
and Terry have been to just about every one of those we did. And
That's
this
awesome.
year we committed to going in 10 times in 2024 to cook meals because of my cooking background. It's
Yeah.
pretty easy for me. And we just spent um, last Saturday, we went down to the Wauwatosa Ronald McDonald House by Milwaukee, put a nice meal on, and Terry is part of a handbell choir, and she brought the handbell choir into play after we did the meal. So
Oh, wow.
those two are huge contributors, and I've become amazing friends with both of them. So
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you were custom rod building jigs. He has a Facebook page. You can just search custom rod building jigs and see all these. See, you're skipping me. This is some cool little widgets and gadgets and fixtures. I haven't seen all of these. That's pretty slick, man. How did
he's
I
got a
miss
mind.
this?
He's got a mind that doesn't stop.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Actually, we were just talking the other day. We may come down to your event and down in Foley.
Oh my gosh, please come. Tell me how I can help. We would absolutely love to have you. I'm glad you brought it up. We should talk about it.
Definitely.
It's a good time. It's a great group. I mean, they're all great. Every one of these events I go to, I love, and I wish I could go to every one of them. But this one has been really good, and it's a little different. It's got a little Southern flavor. We got a little barbecue, a little live music. It's kind of indoor, outdoor. We've got a great venue for it at Donnie and Sally Paul's kind of event barn that they built not far outside of Foley. We would absolutely love to have you. We should talk about that. But
What's the dates on that again?
oh gosh, you're putting me on the spot here. I'm gonna have to look at my calendar. It's in April. Don't let me tell anybody wrong because
Okay.
my guys will kill me. I'm looking at my calendar now. It is April 11th through the 13th, 2025.
Okay.
And we're going to have a schedule coming out right soon here. But yeah, put it on your calendar. We'll have a registration link up at anglersresource.net or in any of the Mastering Rod Building links or sites that you can find, whether it's Facebook, Insta, Spotify, wherever. I'll have Jack Barron, my marketing guy, put that up. But yeah, we'd love to have you. And tell me how I can help you make it happen. I'd love to see some of these jigs first person.
Yeah, Jeff's an amazing guy. My wife was at one time she was writing on my rods and she got to the point where she couldn't keep her hand straight enough and it was
Right,
bothering her wrist.
right.
And she was telling Jeff about it and he's like, we were up there and we were spending the night and he's like, come back in the morning before you go home. And he went down in his shop and made up this jig that it sticks out so it supports her forearm while she's writing. So she's
Brilliant.
back to writing on the rods again.
Brilliant. There we go. Hey, that's awesome. Well, one of the other things that's unique about you is by virtue of your time at working with Josie's Gift, you probably built as many kids' rods as anybody I know or more. And you've certainly done as many or more sit down with a kid like consults from start to finish than anybody else I know. So as a rod builder, what have you learned about that? Like what if someone else is interested in trying to build a rod for a kid or maybe go down this path for the first time? Because like I said, usually our audience as custom rod builders, our customers are really serious fishermen, often adults with some discretionary income or very competitive and serious fishermen, or if someone's trying to get a really nice gift of a lifetime for somebody or something like this. So this is a very different audience than most of us are used to dealing with. Like, talk me through this process and how you sit down with these kids and what you've learned by going through this process with them several times.
First thing, get to know the kid, see what kind of fishing they do and whatnot.
Right.
By rule of thumb, I try to. When I started it, I was like age 9 and up because these aren't toys; they're very nice rods. With
Sure.
that being said, I've done rods for 2-year-olds. It's hard to say no.
Yeah.
Um, I've had usually I'll start out and I steer them towards a medium blank
Okay.
just because of the durability of it. I don't want to give a
Sure.
kid an ultralight that's going to snap and
Right.
be devastating on them. So I
Right.
usually go towards start out with a medium, sometimes even a medium heavy, depending on what
Okay.
they're using it for and whatnot.
Sure.
Um, from there, it's choice of do they want cork, do they want EVA, do they want wood? That's another gentleman I forgot about, Archie's Custom Handles.
Yep.
Archie's donated a lot of wood handles for us.
That's
An
awesome.
amazing guy in the organization.
Thanks,
Uh,
Archie.
yes, definitely.
What
From there,
about length? Have you learned anything about length? I mean, I'm assuming some of these are kind of shorter.
I do. And one of the reasons in the beginning why I set the 9-year-old mark up because I wanted to be able to build a rod for them that they're going to be able to use the rest of their life.
Wow.
So I
Cool.
don't want to do a 4-foot rod for a kid that's only going to use it for 2 years.
Right.
So when I do get into that circumstance or situation, I'm sorry, I'll I'll try to talk them into um, maybe at this time, let's buy an ugly stick or something like that.
Yeah.
I'll decorate it. I'll add their name to it and this and that, something that's not going to break the bank and something they're
Right.
going to be able to use until we get to that point where they're more comfortable with the rod and get them into that. Ugly Stick's a good brand that durability is the biggest
Hard
thing.
to break. Yeah, that's
Yes.
right.
So that I'll take and add names to it. Sometimes we got siblings that are the fishing partner of the child that's going through the issues.
Right.
And there's been times that I've had extra rods on hand that I've actually given a custom rod to one of the siblings. Or if I don't, I'll have the parent go down and buy a $20-$30 combo and I'll put their name on it, decorate it
Yep.
up and stuff like that.
Yep.
As to length, I don't like to go less than 6 foot. That way
Okay.
they can use it from the rest of their life, you know.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
Usually between 6 to 7 foot is what I usually typically stick with for the kids' rods.
Okay.
Medium
Excellent.
action. So yeah.
Do kids, are they all over the place or do they show a preference for cork, colorful EVA, wood, like, or is it as individual as the kids are?
It's as individual as the kids are. It's just like thread work, thread work versus marbling.
Yeah,
It's they
there's multiple camps, you're saying.
exactly. And a
Don't
lot of
don't don't
kids,
get controversial. I don't get controversial.
a lot of
All are
kids.
welcome on this podcast. All are welcome.
Um, I I picked up some pigment from Bill Manzel, I believe
Yeah.
it was. That was the
Hmm.
glow in the dark pigment.
Oh yeah.
And I did a rod for a kid that we gave him his rod while he was in the hospital still. And he had his mom holding blankets over the window so it could get dark enough so he could see that. Didn't work. He went into the bathroom and he shut all the lights off and he stayed up all night just to see that. And I posted that
Mission
on the
accomplished. Mission
site and
accomplished. Yeah.
other kids have seen it. I want to glow in the dark rod. So we do a bunch of that too.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. I bet. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
As
that's
for
awesome.
guides, it's pretty much I love Fuji guides. That's all I use. No, I can't say that.
Yeah. Tell the truth. Tell
um,
the truth.
uh, I get donations from guides. Um, I use what I have on hand.
Sure.
Try not to use anything that's a little lighter. Use a medium to heavy guides. Just again, it's for durability.
Do they wind up mostly being spin casting rods, or is it a mix? Do you build some spinning rods, some true casting rods, or
It's a mix. For the younger kids, I'll go with a undercast spin rod.
okay?
What do they call that? A spin cast combo.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll go that way. Majority of them are spinning rods, but we get some of the older kids that are into
Hmm.
casting rods.
Yeah.
Um, One of the stories I had a kid that threw me for a loop because as in custom building, you can do anything with a rod, and it's
Right.
all about how much you want to put into it. So I always ask what they want for their design, for their theme, a special saying, this, that, and the other thing. I
Right.
had one of the last ones that we just gave away in our July event was a young man named Ben. And when I asked him what he wanted on his rod, he said cobwebs. I'm like,
Cobwebs.
how do I do cobwebs? I was like,
Right.
I can do anything. We'll get it figured out. And I went down to my local tattoo artist and I
Ah,
reached out to him and I said, "Hey, I got a kid. He knows the artist knows what I do." I said, "I got a kid that said he wants cobwebs." And that guy is 50 years old. He perked up like something new, making his brain work, and he was like unbelievable. I just saw him again 2 weeks ago, and Stripe was his name, and he was like asking questions. I said the kid loved it, and he's like, "If you need anything like that, you reach out to me." And
oh, that's
it's
awesome.
it's finding resources that you have, and
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
I sat there like, what am I going to do? Cobwebs, cobwebs.
Right.
Oh, let me check with Stripe. He could probably draw it on there, and he
Sure.
did.
Oh, that's
So
awesome. Yeah, that would have stumped me too, man. Now, I've seen Mark Blaybaum has done some absolutely gorgeous, like marquetry handle work that looks
yes,
like spider webs, but dude, it's beyond me. But yeah, I would have never thought to go to a tattoo artist. That's such a clever idea.
yep. And then on that rod, Tom Solano from Tackle Zoom, he actually engraved, did some etching into some cork handles and
Oh, that's
donated
cool.
them also.
Yeah.
So that was appreciated. So he
Oh, that's
really he
awesome.
really liked his rod. We gave it to him at our event last July, and he was pretty happy with it.
That's
So
awesome. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought we'd have the confluence of the Muffin Man and the Children's Hospital and a tattoo artist all doing great things for kids, right? Like that. That's when
exactly,
you know you got something special going on. That's alchemy, right? Like,
it is exactly.
no, that's awesome. Well, man, Dan, this has been such a uplifting conversation, and I really mean it. I know that there's a part of you that looks for no thanks in this and is reticent about asking for support and certainly would never ask for recognition, but I really, really appreciate you coming on and helping us understand what it is that you and your team do at Josie's Gift and how long you've been doing it. And it's so inspirational to me. And you and I will talk some more. We're gonna find some ways to work together. And I'm particularly interested in this real opportunity in this veterans class, and hopefully finding a way to get you to the event in Foley, and so we will definitely be talking more. But I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today on the podcast, and just really admire so much what you're doing, and it never ceases to amaze me how much impact one motivated individual can have when they just set out to do good things and not think about anything else, and not strive to get anything else out of it. And it's so clear that all you were trying to do was help a kid in need, in pain, a family in need and suffering in a time of stress when there's very little joy and very little hope. And it's just really awesome, man. And I just appreciate so much what you do. And thank you. If I won't be able to recite them all, but if Dan has mentioned your name as someone who's participated or supported or been a sponsor, thank you so much. We see you. We're grateful for you, uh, so neat that you can be such a blessing to so many kids in need. And again, we've kind of given Josie's story and everything Dan's done short shrift a little bit today. But if you want to learn more, like I said, and we'll put all these links there, it's josiesgift.org. There's a phone number where you can contact them. There's an email where you can contact Dan directly. They put the emails of every member of the board out there. They have links about them, their history, how you can donate, who their sponsors are. Like I mentioned, a place you can request a rod yourself. You can help organize a kids' fishing day, either participate in one Dan and Josie's Gift are organizing, or you can help organize your own and they can help you understand how to do it and do it effectively. And you can actually see, and I think this is cool, and with Dan's and Jessica's permission, we'll post this photo, but you can see the Tiny Dancer rod, the original rod that has at least 80 hours in it that Dan built and donated to the one and the only Josie Perea. So I would encourage you to visit the site. And during this holiday season, I know we have a lot going on and we're all dealing with our own things, but if you feel moved to listen to this podcast, please think of how you might be able to support and donate, and just understand that it's going to people who take this very, very seriously, who will see the good deeds done, and you can know you're not wasting your time, your talents, or your resources. So, Dan, you're the man.
I appreciate everything. One little quick story about the Tiny Dancer rod, which was Josie's original rod.
Yeah, please.
She got to take it out one time and didn't catch any fish on it.
Uh-oh.
After she passed her way, her father came to me and said, Dan, what do I do with this rod? I was like, Jerome, Josie would want you to use this rod.
Yeah, take
And
it
it was a
fishing.
little 6 foot pink and purple and sparkly
Yeah,
rod,
yeah.
little
I've seen
low
it.
space reel on
It
it.
was appropriately named as the Tiny Dancer. Right.
And that was one of her nicknames from her family. But
Yeah, okay.
he's like, what do I do with it? I said, she would want you to use it.
Yeah.
So he went on a weekend fishing trip up to De Pere walleye fishing for in the spring, and four buddies of him and he went out there. And they're out there fishing, and he has this little 6 foot pink and purple rod that he's using, and the guys are all giving him a hard time about it.
Oh, sure.
And he's like, I don't care. This means a lot to me.
Right.
Nobody caught any fish, and all of a sudden that pole started dangling, and he pulled in a 32-inch walleye on that little rod.
That is what Babe Winkleman would call a
And
giant thigh.
he sent a video, and he is so excited. He's got tears in his eyes. He's excited. All the guys wanted to use the rod, and he's like, nobody's touching this rod.
He's
And it
touching the
wasn't
Tiny Dancer.
15 minutes later, he pulls in a 29-inch muskie on that little rod. I'm
No
like,
way.
dude, if there ain't somebody watching over you fishing
Yeah,
with
I was gonna
you
say
today.
that's magic. 32-inch walleye, that's pretty special. But then turn around and catch a muskie on the same rod on the same day. Like, yeah,
Yep.
that's if you don't get that message, you ain't paying attention.
No, yep. He had
Oh,
to
that's
fight his
awesome.
buddies off of trying to get his that little rod. So
And that's when Dan launched the Tiny Dancer series, available at Walmart. I'm just kidding. That's
yeah,
funny,
we
man.
I keep Josie's mom and dad involved with everything we do. They're both on our board.
Yeah.
When I have the families sign up for a rod request, I
Mhm.
have them share any information they're willing to share. I don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable
Right,
sharing medical issues with their children and whatnot. I just
right.
say whatever you're comfortable with, and that goes to four people. It goes to myself and my wife, which I have to give a shout out for her because I wouldn't be able to do what we're doing without her help. and Josie's mom and dad. And we're the only four that see any of that information. And it just helps to assure that we're doing the right thing for the right reasons, and them being involved is a big part. The one request her mom had is us going into, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but the Ronald McDonald House, and we
Yep.
cook the meals in there.
Yep.
We're going to continue doing that. Our
It's a
goal was
great
10 times.
organization. Yeah, my wife volunteers a day a week at the Ronald McDonald House here in Birmingham.
Yep.
If you don't know much about it, it has nothing to do with the restaurant. It really is a great organization that helps a lot of families and kids in time of need.
Yes. So yeah, it's an amazing for us to go in there and get to meet some of them families, because I retired from the hospital, so I don't have the direct connection with the kids
Yeah,
anymore and the families.
yeah, yeah.
So
Mm.
I got social workers, doctors, nurses, staff up there that have all my information, and because of
Yeah.
HIPAA, they can't share any information with me. So they
But they
provide
can
that
give your information to the families. Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
and have them
yeah.
contact me outside of the
Right,
hospital, and that's how
right.
we're continuing to do what we're doing. And then word of mouth of all the families that meet other families through their journeys. So yeah.
Well, I'm sure when they put in the consolidated omnibus, health information, privacy and policy accessibility act, that's exactly what they were after. They were trying to shut down one of the many unintended consequences of HIPAA. Good Lord, we could go on and on.
I
But yeah,
agree.
well, I'm glad you found a way to stay connected with them, and it's just awesome. That's a great story. We may have to chase after Jerome and see if he was. So thank you, Laura O'Kane. Thank you so much for all that you do to support Dan and all this wonderful work that he does for these kids. And thank you to Jerome and Jessica Perea and the whole Perea family for your role in all of this. But man, awesome stuff, Dan. You put a smile on my face and warmed my heart, and I really appreciate that.
All right, I appreciate you giving me the time and giving me the kudos. I appreciate that.
Well, you deserve them, and we'll post all this. But if you want to get in touch with Dan, it's just Josie's Gift 22 at gmail.com, and or go to josiesgift.org, and anything you can do, anything you can donate, any rod you can build, anything is greatly appreciated, and it does go directly to a kid who needs it. So awesome work, Dan. Keep it up. We'll look forward to hopefully seeing you at the event in April.
I think we're going to make that happen.
I would love that. I'm gonna help you make that happen. That'd be great.
All
And
right.
thanks everybody for tuning in. If this is the last episode you get this year, I hope everyone has a safe and happy holidays, and we'll see you next year. Thanks, Dan. Be good. Merry Christmas.
You bet. Thank you. And thank you, everybody that helps us out. All our board members. Again, my wife, she's been amazing. She thinks I'm going crazy some days, but she keeps me in line. So
Hey, that doesn't make it wrong.
that's true.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, and thanks everybody for listening. And please remember to like and subscribe and download wherever you get your podcast content. We'll see you next year.